What's up, fantasy managers? Welcome back to another episode of the First Pitch Podcast brought to you by PitcherList.com. My name is Jake Crumpler, and I'll be your host for this edition of the pod. You can follow me on Twitter at Jake Crumpler. You can find all of my work at CrumplerBaseball.com. Let's dive into everything baseball related from Sunday, July 27th. We'll start it off, as always, with the transactions, injuries, news, and notes from around the league, kicking things off with the bad news as catcher Alejandro Kirk was placed on the 7-day IL with a concussion. Always scary anytime anyone is placed on the IL with a concussion-related injury, so hopefully Kirk returns quickly. In a corresponding move, catcher Ali Sanchez was recalled from the minors, and he will play backup to everyday catcher Tyler Heineman in Toronto. Next, pretty big news, outfielder Aaron Judge was placed on the 10-day IL with a flexor strain. Luckily, his UCL remains intact, so Judge is going to avoid surgery, but he could be out for a somewhat extended period of time. I wouldn't be surprised, though, if the Yankees rush him back, especially amid an MVP caliber season for Aaron Judge. With him landing on the IL, Cal Raleigh has moved past him slightly in AL MVP odds. So we'll see if Judge is able to recover those odds when he returns. If he returns, I expect him to return, but probably not in the minimum 10 days. It looks like Jason Dominguez will see more consistent playing time in the outfield for the Yankees, and DH Giancarlo Stanton is expected to get some reps in the outfield as well. That could be a fun experiment for people that are big fans of the Yankees, but nonetheless, very unfortunate to see Judge hit the IL. Next, pair of Royals injuries. Outfielder Jack Caglione was placed on the 10-day IL with a hamstring strain. Unfortunate there because Caglione had struggled all year, and it really feels like he just needs more time to get out of the slump that he's been in because his underlying metrics are so great, but his season will be put on hold. That's Jack Caglione. In a corresponding move, outfielder Randall Grichuk was acquired via trade from the Diamondbacks in exchange for relief pitcher Andrew Hoffman. Grichuk will be on the short side of a right field platoon, replacing Caglione and splitting time with MJ Melendez in the outfield. In other Royals news, starting pitcher Chris Bubich was placed on the 15-day IL with a rotator cuff strain. Apparently, he's been dealing with stiffness in his shoulder for a good portion of the season. Pretty impressive considering Bubich made the All-Star team and has had a pretty great breakout season for the Royals, but Bubich now out for at least the next couple of weeks. In a corresponding move, relief pitcher Jonathan Bolin was recalled from the minors, but it looks like Dallas Keuchel is going to be selected from the minors to start on Wednesday versus his former team, the Atlanta Braves. So Keuchel still kicking around in the majors and looks to be replacing Bubich in the rotation for the Royals. And our last injury involves starting pitcher Grant Holmes, who was originally placed on the 15-day IL, but was quickly transferred to the 60-day IL as he's dealing with elbow inflammation. And that pretty much ends Grant Holmes' season. So you can go ahead and drop him in fantasy. In a corresponding move, relief pitcher Daysbel Hernandez was recalled from the minors, but really terrible injury luck for the Braves this season, as basically that whole rotation, the whole opening day rotation has been decimated by injuries. In somewhat of another corresponding move, the Braves acquired starting pitcher Eric Fetty via trade from the Cardinals in exchange for a player to be named later and some cash. A bit confusing considering the Braves are way out of postseason contention and we expect them to be selling at this point, but it sort of makes sense when you consider everybody in that rotation has been injured, so they need somebody to pitch. So I assume they're just acquiring Fetty just to have somebody throw some innings, and they don't have to put a lot of pressure on young guys coming up from the minor. So Eric Fetty joining the Braves rotation. Now we can move over to our transactions and start with infielder Ahmed Rosario, who was traded by the Nationals to the Yankees in exchange for relief pitcher Clayton Beeter and 18-year-old outfielder Braum Martinez. It's Brown with an M, though, Braum. It looks like Rosario is going to be on the short side of a third base platoon for the Yankees, splitting time with Ryan McMahon, but he's probably going to be more of a utility guy playing all over the infield and a little bit of outfield. So Ahmed Rosario joining the Yankees. Next, we have DH Jock Peterson, who was activated from the 10-day IL after missing 2 months with a fractured hand. Peterson was in the midst of the worst offensive season of his career, posting a 51 WRC plus prior to the injury, and he will return to being on the strong side of a DH platoon in Texas. With Peterson returning, it looks like first baseman Rowdy Tellez is set to see less playing time, as he had been seeing a lot of playing time at first, but Josh Smith will likely see all of the playing time at first now, with Jake Berger getting some at bats as well. No, Berger's still on the IL, scratch that. But in a corresponding move, outfielder Michael Hellman was optioned to the minors. Next, we have relief pitcher Blake Trinan, who was activated from the 60-day IL. He had missed the last 3+ months. He's been out since mid-April with forearm tightness, but the most notable part of Trinan returning is that he's likely to factor into the 9th inning with Tanner Scott on the IL. It looks like Kirby Yates, Ben Kasparius, and Alex Vesia have been splitting the 9th inning since Scott landed on the injured list, but Trinan returning definitely adds his name to that mix. And honestly, I'd make Trinan the favorite. I think Yates should be the guy who's the favorite, but Dave Roberts has been hesitant to use him as just a closer this year. So I think Trinan could be that guy that gets the most saves for the Dodgers moving forward, even after Tanner Scott returns, honestly. And our last transaction involves outfielder Kerry Carpenter, who was activated from the 10-day IL after missing some time with a hamstring strain. He's expected to be on the strong side of a right field platoon, forcing Wensiel Perez onto the weak side of that one. In a corresponding move, shortstop Trey Sweeney was optioned to the minors, giving Javier Baez clear playing time at shortstop for the Tigers moving forward. Now we can look at our news, starting with catcher Adley Rutschman, who is expected to be activated from the 10-day IL today. He's been out with an oblique strain for over a month, and he's expected to reclaim everyday catching duties for the Orioles, forcing Jacob Stallings to the bench or off the team if Alex Jackson is the preferred backup in Baltimore. Next, we have second baseman Brandon Lau, who's expected to be activated from the 10-day IL on Wednesday. He missed just about the minimum time with foot tendonitis, and his return probably forces Taylor Walls to the bench most of the time, with Jose Caballero seeing more time at shortstop. Next, starting pitcher Carson Weisenhunt is expected to be promoted to make his MLB debut for the Giants versus Pittsburgh today. Weisenhunt is the Giants' number 3 prospect according to MLB Pipeline, and while he hasn't been incredible at AAA, 4.42 ERA, 1.33 WHIP, 21% strikeout rate, and a 7% walk rate in 18 starts at AAA, Weisenhunt does have a 70 to 80 grade changeup that suggests future success in the majors. Next, we have starting pitcher Blake Snell, who is expected to be activated from the 60-day IL on Friday to start in Tampa Bay. He made just 2 starts before hitting the IL for the rest of the season with shoulder inflammation, and Snell's return likely means Emmett Sheehan gets kicked out of the rotation. And lastly, starting pitcher Seth Lugo is signing a 2-year extension with the Royals that will guarantee him $46 million with a vesting option for 2028. Very surprising considering Lugo was set to be a free agent and was one of the top options to be traded at this year's deadline. I would have suggested that the Royals trade him and then try to sign him back, because clearly he wanted to come back to Kansas City, but there's probably something in there where Lugo didn't want to get traded, have to relocate himself and his whole family for the final 2 months of the season and then have that uncertainty in the offseason. So signing this extension was probably the best for him, but hey, that's pretty expensive, pretty pricey for a guy who's in his mid 30s, so that should work out well, I think, for Lugo, honestly, but we'll see what the Royals are cooking, because I've been very confused by their trade deadline strategy here, acquiring guys like Randall Grichuk and extending guys like Seth Lugo. So we'll see how things go. I don't think the Royals are going to make the postseason, but they are setting themselves up for next season. Now we can take a look at our notable performances from Sunday, a day in which we had a full slate of 15 games. We'll start it off with our hitters, leading off with third baseman, as we'll have all third basemen here, big third baseman special. Third baseman Miguel Andujar, who helped the A's to win in Houston, going 2 for 3 with a run, a home run, and an RBI. It was his 4th homer of the year, and it traveled 346 feet at 96 miles per hour. And we're well past the days of Andujar hinting at the potential he displayed in his impressive debut campaign, but he still remains relevant in the current era of baseball, seeing plenty of at-bats for the A's when healthy. Andujar gets most of his at-bats against lefty starters, but with his ability to play both outfield and infield corners, he finds his way into the lineup more often than not. Based on his batted ball metrics, I don't think Andujar will get close to replicating his 27 homer rookie season, but with a 92% zone contact rate and a 13% strikeout rate, Andujar will continue to be a contributor in the batting average department. And based on the opponent, the Astros, and the distance of his homer, like I said, 346 feet, you'd have expected Andujar to have gotten a cheap one, taking advantage of the Crawford boxes, but that wasn't the case here as he took the ball the other way down the line to lead off the game with a dinger. I wouldn't expect too much of that going forward, and I'd probably be steering clear of Andujar in the majority of leagues, but give Andujar a shot in AL-only leagues while he's getting the opportunity to play. Next, we have third baseman Otto Kemp, who did all he could, but the Phillies lost in New York against the Yankees. He went 2 for 4 with 2 runs, 2 homers, and 2 RBIs. He's up to 4 homers now. First one traveled 378 feet at 99 miles per hour. Second one went 434 feet at 105 miles per hour. Kemp got a lot of playing time when Bryce Harper spent a few weeks on the IL in June, but found it difficult to get into the lineup until Alec Boehm recently hit the IL, opening up everyday playing time at the hot corner for Kemp. He continues to make the most of his opportunities after tearing up AAA each of the past 2 years. Kemp has displayed power through a small frame at the big league level, and there's still room for him to grow. With an 11% barrel rate and an innate ability to pull the ball in the air, Kemp should continue to hit balls over the fence as long as he's getting at bats. The one concern is an inflated strikeout rate that is likely to keep his batting average below 250. Nonetheless, Kemp will be a godsend in NL-only leagues and could work his way into 15-team relevancy with more performances like this one. Lastly, we have third baseman Ronnie Mauricio, who helped the Mets to a win in San Francisco, going 4 for 4 with a run, 2 doubles, a home run, and 2 runs batted in. It was his 5th homer of the year. Somehow he only has 8 RBIs on the season. This one traveled 398 feet at 105 miles per hour. Highly regarded upon his 2023 debut, almost akin to O'Neal Cruz and Elly De La Cruz due to his large frame at shortstop with an uncanny ability to hit the ball hard. Mauricio's prospect star has faded quickly following an ACL tear that wiped out his entire 2024 campaign. Still just 24 years old. I think it's way too early to be giving up on Mauricio, and the Mets honestly have done him a disservice by not affording him consistent playing time. He's done the most with what he's received, but he hasn't come close to replicating the 117 mile per hour max exit velocity that turned heads back in 2023, nor has he made enough contact to make up for an aggressive approach at the plate. I don't expect a second half breakout for Ronnie Mauricio, but I'd love to see the Mets give him a true opportunity next year or trade him so that he can get an opportunity elsewhere. But if you like a breakdown of other notable hitting performances from Sunday, check out the daily Batters Box article over on PitcherList.com. Now we'll head to the mound and check out some notable starting pitching performances, opening with Carlos Rodon, who helped the Yankees to win against the Phillies, tossing 5 1/3 innings, allowing 4 hits and 3 earned runs while walking 1 and striking out 8. He induced 20 whiffs with 36% CSW across 90 pitches, earning him the golden goal as he had a share of the gallows pole with his 20 whiffs and led baseball in CSW to earn him the King Cole. So impressive performance here from Rodon. Rodon has really turned it around after his disastrous 2023 Yankees debut, and he continues to get better, making notable improvements over his already impressive 2024 campaign. Rodon pitched a lot better than his line looked on Sunday as a trio of homers, 2 by the aforementioned Otto Kemp, got the better of him. Rodon deployed distinct approaches against lefties and righties to great effect in this one. He was almost exclusively sinker slider against lefties and turned to 4-seamers and changeups to pair with the slider against righties. The breaker was his best pitch on Sunday, inducing 7 whiffs for 38% CSW, while his sinker was his only offering not to serve up a long ball, returning 6 whiffs by jamming lefties. 4-seamers and changeups played well off each other low and arm side, combining for 7 whiffs and 38% CSW, and Rodon will continue to be one of the best pitchers in baseball as his velo holds in the mid-90s and his secondaries continue to produce swings and misses. He should have no problem with the Marlins in Miami up next. Next, we've got Max Scherzer, who did all he could, but the Blue Jays lost in Detroit. He tossed 7 innings, allowing 3 hits and 3 earned runs, walking nobody while punching out 11, inducing 15 whiffs with 33% CSW across 96 pitches. And we got a vintage Scherzer showcase on Sunday as he had a little extra life on his heater and paired it beautifully with excellent slider locations, low and glove side. The 4-seamer thrived in the zone despite being taken yard once, returning 5 whiffs and 30% CSW, while his slider led his arsenal with 6 whiffs, as batters were all too happy to chase it out of the zone. In other instances, changeups and curveballs caught them off guard, combining for 4 whiffs and 41% CSW, and honestly, you love to see it. You've also got to hand it to Scherzer, as this came against a legit Tigers lineup. The 41-year-old future Hall of Famer has still got it. Despite a 4.89 ERA on the year, don't hesitate to start Scherzer versus the Royals up next. And lastly, we've got JT Ginn, who helped the A's to win in Houston, tossing 6 shutout innings, allowing just 3 hits while walking nobody and striking out 4. He induced 10 whiffs with 27% CSW across 77 pitches, and Ginn turned in the first scoreless start of his career, continuing what has been a quietly intriguing season for the 26-year-old righty, who's got a 3.89 ERA and a 1.18 whip on the season. Most of his success on Sunday came from sinker-called strikes, which are famously difficult to carry over from start to start, but at 95 miles per hour with decent locations, that pitch is pretty legit, and it returned a trio of whiffs as well, while forcing 7 outs on balls in play, making Ginn efficient enough to produce a quality start on fewer than 80 pitches. He deployed sliders backdoor to lefties and kept them on the outer edge versus righties, but the finesse isn't fully developed, so it induced only a trio of whiffs and 21% CSW. Ginn mixed things up versus lefties, incorporating changeups and cutters, and while the cutters weren't very effective, batters could not lay off his changeups below the zone, returning whiffs on half of the 6 that he threw, meaning he got 3 whiffs on 6 changeups. Ginn doesn't have the polish that his arsenal deserves, but it's a great foundation for him to build off of for future success. By his next start, the Diamondbacks are likely to have a very depleted lineup, so that could end up being a sneaky stream for Ginn against the Diamondbacks, but it isn't Sacramento, so maybe not the best option. We'll see how depleted that lineup is after the deadline. But if you'd like a breakdown of every single start from Sunday, give the Plus Pitch podcast a listen and check out Nick's daily SP roundup over on pitcherlist.com. Now we'll head to the bullpen and check out the relievers that got saves and the closers that pitched outside of save situations or blew their saves. Starting with the former, Jordan Hicks recorded the final 5 outs of the game for his second save, and that was after Aroldis Chapman exited mid-appearance, which means Hicks is probably the closer if Chapman lands on the IL or if he is surprisingly traded. But we are unclear if Chapman is going to hit the IL. Nonetheless, I may be adding Hicks just preemptively in case. Devin Williams recorded his 16th save with a perfect 9th. Emilio Pagan pitched a perfect 9th for his 22nd save. Carlos Estevez pitched a scoreless 9th to record his AL leading, tied for the AL lead, 27th save for Carlos Estevez. Daniel Palencia pitched a perfect 4-out save, his 14th of the year. Kenley Jansen recorded his 18th save with a scoreless 9th. And Edwin Diaz pitched a hitless 9th for his 23rd save of the season. And in terms of closers to pitch outside of save situations or blow their saves, Matt Strahm pitched a scoreless 8th down by 1 as he attempted to keep that game close. Yohan Duran pitched a scoreless 9th trailing by 5. No clue why they used him there. Kyle Finnegan pitched a scoreless 9th up by 5. He hadn't pitched since last Monday, so this was clearly a maintenance outing for him. Ronnie Henriquez blew his 4th save, surrendering a run in the 8th inning. And lastly, Trevor McGill pitched a scoreless 9th and earned his 3rd win when the Brewers walked it off. But if you'd like more information on relief pitchers, check out Rick Graham's weekly articles over on pitcherlist.com. And before we look forward to today's games, we're going to take a quick break. Now we'll look forward to Monday, July 28th, a day in which we'll have a full slate of 15 games. My matchup of the day is Matthew Boyd versus Jacob Misiorowski. Misiorowski is must-see TV every single time he takes the mound. This is also an interdivision matchup, which is always fun to watch, especially between 2 playoff-bound teams. And Matthew Boyd has been so dope all season long, so I'm pumped to see what he can do against the Brewers. In terms of probable starters, we've got 7 in our auto starts tier, including both Boyd and Misiorowski. We've also got Jacob deGrom in Anaheim, Yoshinobu Yamamoto in Cincinnati, and Max Fried versus the Rays. Our probably starts tier has 4 guys, and that's where we'll find our streamer of the day in Slade Ciccone versus the Rockies. Ciccone has been on fire on definitely what we would consider a Vargas rule, as there's not a lot supporting it, but he's been incredible over the past month or so. And now he gets the Rockies outside of the cores with a depleted lineup. No more Ryan McMahon. So no problem starting Ciccone there. I'd also keep an eye out for Richard Fitz in Minnesota. He's pretty solid. His velocity was a little bit down last time out, but the Twins are without Byron Buxton right now. So that lineup is really not that scary. I'd be starting Fitz there. Also, it's outside of Fenway, so he should have even a should have an even better shot at success there. Now, in terms of hitter suggestions, I've got a lot of suggestions here, so take your pick. We'll start it off with Orioles hitters versus Chris Bassett in Camden. I say that because there are three guys that are very notably good against Chris Bassett, starting with Gunnar Henderson, who's batting 400 with 2 homers and a 1455 OPS and 10 at-bats versus Bassett. Ryan O'Hearn has batted 538 with a homer and a 1446 OPS and 13 at-bats against Bassett. And Ramon Arias has batted 500 with a homer and a 1431 OPS in 8 at-bats against Bassett. I'd also look at Guardians hitters versus Bradley Blaylock of the Rockies. He's been not great this year, 8.67 ERA, 1.78 whip, and just 9 strikeouts in 27 innings pitched. So Guardians hitters should be able to take advantage of Bradley Blaylock. I'd also look at Gleyber Torres versus Eduardo Rodriguez in Comerica Park. Torres has batted 333 with 4 homers and a 1330 OPS and 27 at-bats against Rodriguez. I'd also take a look at Dodgers and Reds hitters in Great American Ballpark. Not the greatest pitching matchup to target hitters in, Yoshinobu Yamamoto versus Chase Burns, but it is Great American Ballpark. I'm always targeting hitters there. I'd also look at Josh Bell versus Framber Valdez in Daikin Park. He's batting 364 with a homer and a 1053 OPS in 11 at-bats versus Framber Valdez in his career. And Bell will flip around and hit from the right side against a southpaw, meaning he could take advantage of the Crawford boxes in Daikin Park. I'd also target Marcus Semien versus Jack Kochanowicz in Angel Stadium. Semien has batted 500 with a 1,000 OPS in 12 at-bats against Kochanowicz. I'd also look at Luis Arias versus Frankie Montas in Petco Park. Arias has batted 667 with a 1556 OPS in 9 at-bats against Montas. Only a couple more, I promise. Francisco Lindor versus Dylan Cease in Petco Park is another one I'm targeting. He's batted 333 with 3 homers and a 1524 OPS in 12 at-bats against Cease. And lastly, I'm looking at Mariners and A's hitters in Sutter Health Park. It is a great hitters park. We'll see Luis Castillo versus JP Sears. And the one hitter I'll take note of here is Mitch Garver versus JP Sears, who's batted 333 with a homer and a 1052 OPS in 12 career at-bats against the Southpaw. And now we'll close things out with our relievers to watch. Aroldis Chapman is pitched on back-to-back days and is possibly headed to the IL. So Jordan Hicks is probably the top guy for a save. But since he got 5 outs on Sunday, maybe we see Greg Weissert get the 9th for the Red Sox on Monday. Carlos Estevez has pitched on back-to-back days, but so has Lucas Erceg and Angel Zerpa. So maybe Hunter Harvey gets the 9th for the Royals on Monday. Edwin Diaz has pitched on back-to-back days, but so has Reed Garrett. So I'd expect Ryan Stanek to get a shot at a save on Monday. And lastly, Emilio Pagan has pitched in each of the past 3 days, but so has Tony Santillan. So one of Graham Ashcraft, Scott Barlow, or Taylor Rogers, probably in that order, are likely to be set up for a save for the Reds on Monday. But that'll do it for today's episode of the First Pitch Podcast. Make sure to head on over to pitcherlist.com to check out all of the great articles and features we have on the site. Sign up for PL Plus or PL Pro to gain access to the Discord and to support the Pitcher List staff. You can follow me on Twitter at Jake Crumpler. Tune in live on YouTube tomorrow and every day for a new installment of the podcast. And make sure to enjoy the day as we are blessed with another day of baseball.